Welcome to another episode of the Burn Boot Camp podcast. This is Morgan Klein, one of your hosts. Today, we're going to dive in deep into the joys and challenges of motherhood, specifically around mom guilt. So whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a working mom, or somewhere in between, I think we can all relate that mom guilt has crept into our mind at a given time. So I am certainly no stranger to mom guilt. However, I want to just talk a little bit about how I navigate mom guilt and what I do to really put myself in a different frame of mind when I am feeling it. And so we can all be triggered in different ways, right? Something that triggers me when I think about mom guilt is, am I working too much? Is my work-life balance okay? Do my kids, are they getting enough of me? Am I saying yes to many things at work? And so that's a big one that's constantly flowing through my head because as the CEO of Burn Boot Camp, I do have a full schedule. You know, I have a full schedule at work, at the office, but also traveling, also doing events on the weekends. I try to bring my kids to as much as I possibly can, but even when they are with me at work events, you know, I am wearing a hat that isn't always mom first. Mom first. So, you know, that's a big trigger for me is just constantly wondering, am I in the right seat? Am I doing the right things for the people that I love the very most? Number two is when I get guilt when I do take time for myself, right? Not at work, not at home, but like being with my friends, going to get my nails done or going on a girls trip even, you know. I try to prioritize a girls trip every year and I've been able to do that and everything is always fine when I get home. But of course, when I'm leading up to it, I'm thinking, oh my God, should I have booked this trip? You know, it's one more time that I'm away from the kids. However, you know, it's important that we get self-care. It's important that we do things that are filling our cup up. And sometimes when we're with our kids, we're not filling our cup up per se, right? We're emptying our cup. We're giving that all to them. We're pouring into our kids because that's our job. And so you need to do things that are outside of that aren't work, you know, and that aren't obligations. They're things that bring you a lot of joy. So whether that's dinner with girlfriends or a girls trip or anything in between, it's important, but I know it also can trigger guilt because it has done that for me. The other thing is comparison. I have fallen into that comparison trap at times, whether that's scrolling social media or even comparing myself to some of my friends and how they're doing fun things with their kids. And, you know, that moment creeps up where you're like, shoot, I didn't have anything planned for Easter baskets or, you know, for Halloween, you know, things like that, or Christmas or Thanksgiving. All the holidays usually will trigger me, or summer vacations, you know, of gosh, I'm so busy here, and here. Am I doing enough? So those are things that trigger me. There are a lot of triggers though for many of us as moms. And, you know, I think it's important to be honest about it, but it's also important to combat that and create some strategies to get your mind right and to talk yourself, you know, with positive affirmation and not negative affirmation and that negative mindset. Because I can promise you, if you're thinking about it and you've got the guilt and you're a little bit worried about if you're enough, like you are. Like you, first of all, you absolutely are. Because if you're even thinking about it, your kids are lucky to have you as a mom. You care so much about them that it's consuming space in your mind often because you want to be the absolute best for them. And so just knowing that means that you care so much about your children and they are very, very loved. So just before I go into anything about me, I want to affirm today that you are doing a great job and that your kids are watching you. Even in the moments where you think you're not doing it great, they're watching you and they're going to learn something out of it. And it's going to help shape them as a human being and as an adult. And so keep doing the good work. All right. So I wanted to share a little vulnerability here of a time where there was high mom guilt, because it was actually just this year. My middle son, Maxwell, is in kindergarten and he had his first field trip. And I remember getting the email that you could sign up and you could be basically a chaperone. And I remember looking on my calendar and I had something work-wise that like just could not be moved. You know, usually I have a pretty flexible schedule, but this could just not be moved. And so I remember thinking in my head, like, dang, like I told myself I was going to go on every field trip. I told myself I wasn't going to miss field trips because this has happened with Cameron before. And I remember making this commitment to myself. It was unfortunately a scheduling thing where I just didn't know well enough in advance to block my calendar out. But anyways, nonetheless, I remember taking Maxwell into school that day and he thought I was staying with him. He thought I was going on the field trip with him and I wasn't. And it was time for me to leave and tell him to have a great time. It was a lot of tears but all the other moms are here. Why aren't you here? Why aren't you coming? He was, a little nervous to go on his first field trip at school and not have his mom there. And so, of course, that killed me inside. It really did. And there was a lot of mom guilt, going to the car and driving off that day and coming into work. Of course, he was great. He had a great time. He had some other moms there that thankfully have my back when I'm not there, and that he feels comfortable around. And so he had a great time, right? And it wasn't a negative experience for him, even though it started off a little bit as a negative experience. Of course, I think my mind went to the worst. He's not going to have any fun. He's going to cry. He's upset. But no, he came home from school and he loved his field trip. And so thankfully, kids are very resilient in that manner. Another time with my daughter, I'll share is, I picked him up from school and she had mentioned, room moms were in that day. And God bless you, room moms. Like, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to take care of our kids and take care of our teachers. And this is a role that I have not been able to participate in and volunteer myself in because of my work commitments. And of course I feel bad about that. I want to be able to do that. I want my kids to see me in the classroom and see me helping out. But unfortunately, this is just not the season where I can do that. Maybe I can next year. Maybe I can the year after that. We'll see. But Cameron had said to me, well, why aren't you a room mom? Like, there's other moms in the classroom. And it's just one of those like, why aren't you? Why aren't you here, mom? And of course, that hurts inside. It really, really does. I don't think that there's any strategy I could share with you that's going to take away those immediate feelings that we feel when we feel like we've let our kids down. So it's happened to me, you guys, and mom guilt is something that I do experience often. But I can't live in that space, right? Because I have chosen this path for me. I've chosen to be a working mom that has to get into the office basically from 9 to 5. And I choose to travel. I've chosen to put myself in a position where I have responsibilities in my life that go beyond my children. And so I'm reminding myself that I am teaching them something in all of this for when they are adults and when they choose careers and choose to, start a family. But there's a couple strategies and techniques that I want to just share with you guys to help you navigate when you are experiencing these feelings. Number one is self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to do all the things that you need to do, and know that nobody is perfect. Not even the perfect looking parents out there. We all have our things. Childhood is not perfect. The world is not perfect. Why would we want to think that should be the expectation? And so give yourself a little bit of compassion here that you are trying to juggle a lot. Like I said, whether you're a working mom, a stay-at-home mom, it's hard. Both of it is hard. There's so many responsibilities. There's, kids, multiple kids, spouses, work, house, all the different things that you're trying to manage. And, to think that you're going to do it perfectly is likely the wrong expectation. So give yourself a little bit of grace there. Number two, set realistic expectations. Okay. So I'm big on this. I've talked about this in a previous podcast, but it is impossible to do everything, right? To do the perfect crafts over the holidays, to, have all the events planned out for the year and have every field trip reminder on the calendar. Maybe they forgot to wear the shirt that they were supposed to wear for the field trip. I've done that before. I've forgotten that Cameron had a pink day and she didn't wear pink. I missed the email. I am allowed to miss emails, and we figure it out in the moment. Things are not going to be perfect, and we've got to teach our kids that too, right? And so those are always lessons for me. When I mess up as a mom and I forget to do something, or I don't have it perfectly, or I, well, this friend's going to the Eras tour. Why can't I go? And, this comparison of what their friends are doing, what they want to do. Sometimes the answer is just, no, we're not doing that. We don't have to do all the things. We have to set the expectations not only for ourselves, but for our kids that, hey, we don't get to just do all the fun stuff and have it all right all the time. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be times where you have to say no, and that's going to be hard for you. There's going to be times that we forgot to do something or we didn't do the same things that our friends did, okay? So set the right expectations not only for you, but for your family as well. Seek support, okay? This is where my mom friends come in, and if I'm feeling it or my husband, just talk about it. It's never good to hold it in. It's never good to suffer alone. Talk about how you're feeling. And guess what? It's okay to talk about it with your kids. That might be an unpopular opinion, but I can remember that night that I got home after the field trip for Max, and I remember laying in bed with him and talking through that with him and telling him, it doesn't make mommy feel good that I couldn't be there for you today, and I'm honest with him and I'm able to communicate with him. He'll be 6 years old in a couple months. And so I think it's important that when we feel like we've let our kids down, then we should talk about that with them. Or maybe we have let our kids down and we need to apologize for letting them down. This isn't a scenario that I apologized per se, because I also needed him to understand that I had commitments and there was a sacrifice that I had to make, and that I didn't like to make it, but I had to make it. And that the next field trip, I was going to make sure that I was going to be there for that. I made a commitment to him, but I didn't break a commitment that I had made to somebody else. So talking about it, whether that's to your children, to your spouse, to some of your best friends that also probably experience that, we all need our hype people, right? To be like, hey, I understand why you might be feeling that way, but listen, you're a great mom and you got this. And your kids are so lucky to have you as their mom. Everybody needs to hear that every once in a while, but you got to tell people how you're feeling. So seeking support is something that I do. Mindfulness, staying present in the reality. Okay. A lot of the times I think you can tend to get your mind wandering, or you can tend to let your mind wander into all the things, right? And before you know it, you're convincing yourself that you should quit your job and, stay at home. Maybe that's gone through my head before. So maybe I'm just speaking my own truth here. Mindfulness would say in the moment, maybe that sounds like the solution to the problem, but is it really going to help everything? Is it really going to make you happy? Is this really the solution to it? Right. And so we get so extreme sometimes in our minds, and just, I would offer to stay mindful, stay present in the moment, and really understand, is this as bad as I think it is? Because most of the time it's not. Like I told you, Max was fine when he got home. And I guess there's always different scenarios. Of course, I want to honor that, but he was totally fine. He bounced back. We did something fun. I got some mommy points, and we're good, and we're moving on. So really just try to be in that reality and not letting your mind wander to the worst case scenarios. And then last but not least, just challenging those negative thoughts. So again, positive affirmations, whether that's coming from a friend, it also needs to come from you as well. I am a good mom. My kids are taken care of. They're safe. They're healthy. They're happy. We love each other. We're communicating well. I'm trying my best. All the positive affirmations, you got to tell yourself that, because if you don't, the negative is always going to win. The negative is always louder than the positive. So you got to really feed your mind with those positive thoughts and remind yourself of the actuality of, hey, I might have messed up today, but my kids have me, and they're loved, and they're safe, and they're happy. So continue to practice that positive affirmations and challenging all of those negative thoughts that you have. So one last thing I want to talk about is another technique that I've used to really judge this whole balancing act. And a lot of the times I'm guilty of sitting in bed at night and thinking, how did my day go? Did I do all the things for all the people? And most of the time I drop the ball somewhere, whether that's home or work or friendships. So instead of judging myself on a daily basis, because we're always going to probably let somebody down on a daily basis, I try to open that window up a little bit more. So I do this especially with my kids. I traveled Monday. Okay. I was gone from sunup to sundown. So didn't win today, right? Like I could beat myself up over that. I wasn't there for bedtime. I wasn't even there for the morning time. I was gone before they even woke up. Like my kids didn't even see me, right? They got to FaceTime me, but I could beat myself up over that, right? I could sit in that mom guilt. But instead, I'm going to look at my week in a whole, right? And I'm going to look at Monday through Sunday. What are the things that I was able to do to pour into that motherhood cup or that mommy cup? And what are the things that I was able to do to pour into work? So it's constantly this balancing act. But if you judge yourself in a 24-hour basis, it's impossible. You're setting the wrong expectation for yourself. You're setting yourself up for that failure to feel like you failed somebody. Instead, widen that range. How did I show up for people this week? Or every 2 weeks or every month, whatever makes sense to you based on who you're assessing. But there's going to be that ebb and flow. There's going to be days where you're on for certain people and off for others. And then there's going to be days that you're off for those people you were on for and then, on for the people you were off for. So I do that with my children. I think about how was my week this week? And maybe even the week was bad. Maybe I had a really busy week at work. And, we just completed at athlete games. And so it wasn't just a busy weekend. I had the whole busy week. So now I need to look at my schedule ahead and be like, okay, how can I kind of compensate for that? What do I need to do next week to make sure that my kids are feeling me and they're feeling my presence and they're feeling my energy and they're feeling my love and support? So widen that range. That's my opinion. That's my advice on how you can reduce mom guilt on a daily basis. So thank you guys for listening. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope it affirmed some things for you or gave you some permissions to set different expectations for yourself. I also hope that, my technique of judging yourself in a longer period of time versus those short days can give you a little bit more context to the reality that we aren't going to nail it every single day. And there's going to be hard days, but then there's going to also be some really, really great days. And so those are the things you need to focus on how you can really assess yourself. So thank you guys so much for listening to the Burn Boot Camp podcast. If you would like to, we would love for you to give us a review, give us a rating, share this podcast with your friends, with your family. We always love to share the love here at Burn Boot Camp. But thank you so much for listening today. We'll talk to you soon. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.